Hi, my name is Haley, and I am Secretary of the Student Advisory Council with Anti-Trafficking International. And today I'll be presenting on the top 8 misconceptions about human trafficking. The first misconception is that human trafficking always involves physical kidnapping. As we mentioned in our previous video explaining the process of trafficking, which I highly recommend you watch if you haven't already, while traffickers can physically kidnap their victims, they often use manipulation and attempt to gain the trust of their victims before they take advantage of them by pretending to be romantically interested in them, as an example. This is why it's important not to accept gifts from people you don't know and be wary of older boys or girls who may seem particularly interested in you and are attempting to isolate you from your friends and family. The second misconception is that traffickers only target victims they don't know. Oftentimes, traffickers turn out to be people the victim trusts, such as family members and friends. In fact, the Counter Trafficking Data Collaborative reported that in 36% of all human trafficking cases, youth were intentionally exploited by family members looking for a payoff in the form of drugs or something else of value. The grooming process enables trusted people to take advantage of a teen and convince or force them to participate in activities, thus trafficking the victim. The third misconception is that only girls can be victims or survivors of sex trafficking. Although there is a disproportionate amount of women compared to men represented by survivors, the reality is that anyone can be a victim. In fact, studies estimate that as many as half of sex trafficking victims and survivors are male. Male victims are much less likely to be identified because they're less likely than women to report, and women are more often represented because they're more likely to reach out for help, thus skewing results. The fourth misconception is that trafficking only happens in third world countries. Trafficking is such a large criminal enterprise, partially because it is so widespread. It can happen anywhere, including in your own community. In fact, in the US alone, it is estimated that around 200,000 children are at risk for being trafficked into the sex industry annually. The fifth misconception is that human trafficking always involves crossing borders. Human trafficking and human smuggling are two different things. Human smuggling requires illegal border crossing. However, human trafficking does not require any movement. In fact, it can happen from a victim's own home. The sixth misconception is that traffickers are always scary and blatantly cruel. Because the grooming process is highly manipulative, this means that traffickers are highly skilled to win over potential victims, and they can actually be quite charming and kind during the grooming process. The seventh misconception is that human trafficking only happens to young adults and older teenagers. Actually, the average age of a human trafficking survivor in Northern Virginia is 15. Even children as young as the age of 11 or 12 are exploited. Whenever younger children are trafficked, it is often family members that are the traffickers simply because they are the ones with access to the younger children. The last misconception is that human trafficking is essentially child prostitution, especially since the victims are often not physically forced into being trafficked. This is blatantly false because there is no such thing as a child prostitute. All children exploited or involved in human trafficking are survivors and victims of a crime. There's no need for proof of force, fraud, or coercion when the victim is under the age of 18. So what can you do moving forward? We recommend that you create an awareness campaign at your school, neighborhood, or community organization. Remember that knowledge is power, and there's access to resources on how to do this, including posters and PowerPoints, in the links down below. The second thing is to be sure to clear up any misconceptions about human trafficking that you do hear. If you would like to reach out to Anti-Trafficking International, this is our contact information. In addition to this, if you want to learn more information, this is our reference page. Thank you so much.